Okay, this is the 2.5 notes. Make sure you've watched the 2.4 notes before this because that will obviously definitely help. Also, make sure you watch the cheat sheet video. That'll help you with 2.4. But again, once you've started doing this, I think you'll kind of get the picture. But essentially, today we're doing the same thing. The only difference is we are starting with these graphs, and these graphs are what we're moving. So we might be taking this graph, this x squared graph, and moving it over to the right. So it looks something like this. The cubic, we could move it to the left and down, so it looks something like this. The square root, we could reflect and move it down. The absolute value, we can move it to the right and flip it. So that's what we're doing today. So we're essentially combining the stuff we learned the other day with 2.4 and moving it with graphing. Now the big thing with this is there's only two things I'm looking for these graphs. Now with absolute values, I will be honest, we're going to have a whole lesson on absolute values next, 2.6. So absolute values I'm going to be a little bit more particular on, but for today, the only thing I'm looking at, and everything besides an absolute value, the only two things I'm looking at is the main point and the shape of the graph. And again, so what I mean, the main point for all these, actually let me try to clear this out a little bit. Sorry, I'm trying not to talk fast, but I'm also in a hurry because it's Saturday and I want to get out of here. So the main point is the vertex for some of these. The x cubed is the point in the middle where it kind of switches and changes directions, and the square root is the beginning point. Now, obviously, all of them, that you'll notice, start with 0, 0 with the parent function. So all those main points start at 0, 0. So that's where we're starting. We'll move that point, and then we'll draw the shape of the graph. And that is the reason why that's what I'm looking for, that main point and the shape. So this first one, plus 3, means we go up 3. So that main point starts at 0. I go up, 1, 2, 3. Forgot to zoom in. That's going to make life easier for sure. Move that up, 1, 2, 3, and we have that points. And so that's the first point you're looking at. The second point, I guess I should say, that's the first thing I'm looking at to grade. The second thing I'm looking at to grade is the shape. So now this is a parabola because it's squared. So this needs that U shape. Now again, later we'll learn a little bit more about parabolas and how to graph those more specifically, but for right now, that's what we're doing. Number 2, we are moving this to the right 2, so to the right 2 and down 4. So again, we start at 0, 0. We go to the left, 1, 2. Then we go down, 1, 2, 3, 4. So that's where our new point is. And then we have to look, what is the parent function for this one? Well, this one was pretty easy. It was x squared. This one, there's nothing with the x. We have to realize that it's got that exponent of 3, so it's cubed. So it's that squiggly shape. Again, just kind of do your best at what that looks like. It doesn't have to be perfect, as long as you have the generic shape correct. Number 3, this is reflected across the y-axis. And again, this one I have show up a lot in these couple lessons because it seems like that's one of them that's the main one that they reflect across the y-axis. The main reason is because a parabola, if you reflect it, doesn't change. An absolute value, if we reflect it, doesn't change. So technically, the only other one would be x cubed, but really square roots are the main one. So normally, we start at 0, 0. We don't go up, down, left, or right, so we're staying at 0, 0. We're not going up or down, but then we're reflecting it, so it reflects as across the y-axis, so it just points the other way. It goes up and points that other way, to the left. Absolute value is your V shape. Absolute value hopefully reminds you it's a V shape. And we are going to the left 2, so to the left 2. And then we are reflecting it across the x-axis. So we start at 0, 0. We go to the left 2, so that's our new point. And then reflected across the x-axis just means that it's opening downward. And again, we'll go into a little bit more detail on that in the next lesson. This next one we have squared again, so it's another U shape. It's another parabola. We go to, looks like it to the right 1. And then, so this has another thing. It is stretched by 2, and it's reflected across the x-axis. Sorry you can't read that. It's right on the edge and I couldn't fit it in there. So the big thing that we haven't talked about a lot is a stretch. Now a stretch, if you look back at what we were talking about with our table, a stretch is what we multiply by the y value. Oh, down here. I was going to say that was somewhere. A stretch is what we multiply by the y value. So our c for this one is 2, so you're multiplying your y values by 2. So I will only do this probably with parabolas or absolute values. Definitely with parabolas or absolute values. So what that means is instead of going, well, let's do this first. We go to the right one. So normally it goes through 1, 1 and negative 1, 1. I said that in the opposite order I drew it up. But those y values we multiply by 2. So instead of going through that, it'll go through those. Now again, the only thing I did is instead of going through, so that point now is 2, 1. I multiplied that y value by 2, so it's now 2, 2. So now it looks a little bit like this, a little bit more stretched out. But then it's then reflected across the x-axis, so it goes downward like that. Now here's the thing. I put this on here to kind of give you that example and challenge you. On the test, if I put one like this, it'll be multiple choice, or the opposite. I could do the graph, and I want you to put the equation where you're going to have a little bit more guidance, because that's a little bit, it's tricky to do. It's tricky to remember when you just are starting with a blank slate. But if you notice that it goes through points like that, that's when hopefully you'll remember, oh, that means it's stretched a little bit. But again, the good news is if you missed that, it's minus 1 point at the most, maybe even half a point. So I wouldn't stress too much about those. So do these on your own, hit pause, do these on your own, hit play, and then look at the answers. So for this one, we are going to the right 2 and down 4. And again, that's the most common thing. Obviously, I'll put other ones on the test, but the most common thing is just doing left, right, up, and down. If you know that, you'll do, I mean, I'm not saying you'll definitely not get an A, but you'll probably pass as long as you know that, or you'll do okay on this section. So to the right 2, so we're starting at 0, 0, to the right 2, down 1, oh, sorry, yeah, down 1, 2, 3, 4. And this is a square root, so it goes that little hook to the left. And again, the good news is you don't have to memorize that. That is on here, and this cheat sheet you can use on the test. I'll also include a formula sheet on the test as well. So this one moves to the left 3, and then it's reflected across the x-axis, and then we go down 1. So to left 3, 1, 2, 3. And then this is a V shape, so it's going to look like this. But we reflect it across the x-axis, so it's going to open down. And we go down 1. So take that point down 1, and now it is opening downward. So it gets a little bit more confusing when you add more steps, especially when they're the stretch or compressions, which again, I don't think you'll actually have to do it all on your own. You'll have a little bit of guidance with either multiple choice or, again, some like these other ones where I give you the graph and you have to tell me the transformation. But again, don't stress over that. I think there's probably, at most, there's going to be one question on the test like that. And so maybe 1 point, maybe. So I went ahead and had you guys do these on your own because really once you know what the transformations are, you can kind of do these. So for instance, so do these on your own. If you have no idea how to do them, then just hit play and watch me do them. That's fine. Or watch me do the first 2 and then try to do 10 and 11 on your own. But I think you can maybe do these on your own. So at least give it a try. So the first thing we want to look for is this is obviously a square root. But that square root is opening to the left, and so that left means it's reflected across the y-axis. So that means it is negative x. Now technically, and I'm not going to count you off for this because I forget it all the time, but technically it should be f of x is equal to negative x, or y is equal to negative x. But again, I'm not going to be super nitpicky about that. Maybe if I was here to teach you in person, I would be. Probably not, but definitely for this one, I'm okay with that. So this next one is the x cubed shape, and it looks like we went, so this is that point in the middle. That's good to recognize. It looks like we went to the left 2, and down 1, 2, 3, 4. So we have parentheses, and if we go to the left, that means we're actually adding, and that's 2. Don't forget that third. And then we're going down 4, so minus 4. And again, technically, there should be an f of x. I'm not going to be nitpicky about that. Now, these two, again, I told you, these are the only ones that I'll talk about stretch or compressions on. And again, these are what you're going to have on the test, not one like we had earlier. So this one, don't stress about this one. That's confusing. But you will have, I think, just one on the test that's going to look like this, where hopefully you realize it's squished a little bit because normally from that vertex you go up 1 over 1, up 1 over 1. Same thing with this one. This one usually go 1, 1, but it's not. It's a little bit further down on number 11, and it's squished a little bit on number 10. So since it's squished, it only goes up to 1/2. That means we multiplied the y value by 1/2. So it's 1/2. Then it's the absolute value of x. And we went to the right 3, so it's x minus 3. We didn't go up or down at all, so you can leave it like that. Then the next one, it is reflected, so it's negative. But it is, it goes from 1, it went to 2, so it stretched from 1 to 2, it gets bigger, so that means it's actually negative 2x squared. Now again, in my opinion, that's for the A+. If you want an A+ on this test, then definitely make sure you know that. If you know everything else and you're really good at it, then yeah, study that and make sure you get at this too. But if you're struggling with this stuff, don't work on the stretch or compressions for this one. Wait until get good at some of the other things, because there's not going to be many on your test. Again, maybe one like this on your test. Now, you will have stretch or compressions when I'm just asking you to translate it or to put it in words, like we did in section 2.4. So make sure you know it for that reason. So the next thing we have, instead of having our parent function, we just kind of have a generic graph. So the big thing with this is make sure you know where those points are, and then you're going to move the corners first. So the corners are at -2, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Oops, 5, -2. So we can put that over here. So -2, 2, over 3, up 4, and 5, -2. So we're starting with those corners, and then this is where you could use that table that I did in the other on 2.4 at the very end of the lesson where we were moving the ordered pairs. I gave you a table. If you want to use that, you can, but really just move each one of these points, kind of what they say. And again, that table helps for some of them, but especially left, right, up, and down, that table's not going to help a lot, because literally all you do, -4 is to the left 4, down 3. So move every single one of these points, left 4, down 3. So left 1, 2, 3, 4, down 1, 2, 3. Over 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3. Over 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3. And then connect them. So it looks exactly like the other one. All we did was we moved it to the left and then down. So you might need that table on a problem like this, where if you have the x on the inside, that means we're reflecting across the y-axis. And that table says if we reflect across the y, that means we take the, well, and actually, again, I would say instead of using the table, I think if you use your graph, that'll help. Sorry, I took a U-turn there in the middle because I realized, again, I would graph these ordered pairs, -2, 2, 3, 4, 5, -2, and you reflect those across the y. So when you reflect them across the y, you just have to make sure you realize they're the same distance away from the y-axis as normal. They're just on the opposite side. So this one is 2 steps away here, so we're going to go 2 steps away on the other side and have a point. The next one up here is 3 steps, so we go 3 steps over here and have a point. And this next one is, what, 5 steps, so we go 5 steps over here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and have our other point. And then we connect them again, so connect from here to here. And you can kind of see how that's reflected across. And if you need help seeing that, don't do this on a test or a quiz, but if you need help seeing that, if you connect those other ones, now you can see how those are reflected. Now multiplied by 1/2, this, the compression, again, it is just multiplied by the y value. So that's the up and down value, and I'll talk about that in a second. So let's put our points, -2, 2, 3, 4, 5, -2. That's your starting point. And then you're multiplying every y value, and the y value is up and down. You're multiplying it by 1/2. So this y value is at 2, because you went up 2. So now this one, when you multiply that by 1/2, you only go up 1. Then the next one, the y value is 4. So instead of going 4 and multiply by 1/2, that's 2. And if you need a calculator, you can. And the next one is down 2. Well, if you multiply that by 1/2, you only go down 1. So this one is just squished a little bit. Looks like this. Now that one I'm going to say is fair game, because that one's not nearly as hard as the other ones where you kind of have to like finagle where all the points are. This one should be fair game because I'm telling you where the points are rather than just, I mean, the other ones you only had 1 point, that main point. So all these, the only point I really am looking for, like I said, is that main point, which makes those a little bit more difficult. These are a lot easier because, again, I give you all the points. This next one is -2, 2, 3, 4. Again, I always start with those points. And this one is doing 2 things. So this is reflected across the reflected across the x-axis. So I'm going to do that one first. And before I do anything, I'm just going to draw the points again. So reflected across, again, it's the same distance on the other side. So that's 2 steps away. This one's 4 steps. I go 1, 2, 3, 4 steps on the other side. And this one is 2 steps down, so it's 2 steps up. So that's the reflection. And now we're going up 3. So now every one of those, I'm going to move up 3. So 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, and 1, 2, 3. So I know there's a lot of points, and it's a little bit hard if you're not using colors. But if you need to erase some to make sure you can tell, by all means you can do that. But that's what that one should look like. So go ahead and do these on your own. Again, pause this, do them on your own, then check your work. And start every one of these with the ordered pairs. So over 3 up 2, over 6 down 2, and 9, 0. Then once you get fairly good at these, or once you start doing the left and right up and down, again, shouldn't be bad. This is to the right 2 and up 4. So over 1, 2, up 1, 2, 3, 4. Over 1, 2, up 1, 2, 3, 4. Over 1, 2, up 1, 2, 3, 4. And over 2, up 1, 2, 3, 4. Not terrible. This one, we're multiplying all the y values by 2. So again, oops, sorry. And look at where these are at. 0, 0, 3, 2, 6, -2, 0, 9. Now we multiply all the y values. So again, the amount you go up and down. Now we're multiplying that by 2 instead of 1/2. So 0 obviously stays there. This one was up 2. Now it goes up 4. So we're going to multiply that by 2. This one goes down 2, so we're going to go down 4, and this one is 0, so it doesn't go anywhere. When you multiply 0 by 2, it just stays 0. Last but not least, this one is now reflected. Sorry, before I get ahead of myself. This is reflected across the x-axis, so do that one first. So this point doesn't change because it's right on the axis. This one goes across. This one goes across, this one doesn't change. And then we are going, oh, I guess I did it in the wrong order, but for this one it doesn't matter. Actually, just to make sure we're consistent, let's go ahead and do it that way. Sorry, I don't think it matters, but just to be consistent, we're going to go over 3 first. So over 3, over 3, over 3, over 3. So this is off my graph, but that's okay. We'll go ahead and keep it like that. And now we're reflecting it. So this one stays the same. This one comes down. This one goes up. 2. Again, they're the same distance away from that axis. They're just on the other side. So now this is our graph. Okay, last but not least, and this shouldn't take that long. It's just inequalities. But the whole thing is it's the exact same we did before, earlier today, or earlier in this lesson. The only difference is now we're shading. Now the shading is the same thing. If y is greater than, you shade above. If y is less than, you shade below. And if there's no line under it, it's dotted. If there is a line under it, it's solid. Now, one thing I always do is I label this is dotted and this is solid, just to make sure I remind myself. This is a really easy time to forget that it's dotted, so I always do that first. Now from here, we do the same thing as before, so we're going to the left 2 and down 4. So 0, 0, we go left 2, down 1, 2, 3, 4. That's my vertex. This is a parabola because it's squared, and again, it's an inequality, but it is dotted. So make sure you make that dotted. And again, if it's hard for you to make it dotted, just label it dotted. That's completely fine. Then once you have that, so that's all stuff that we've done earlier today besides the dotted. Now, do we shade above or below? Well, again, I know some of you it's a little bit hard, but if it helps, just look at this point here. Start with that main point. So we shade above that. That means we shade up here inside. If we shade below that, we would shade under that point, so we'd shade outside. But if you always want to, if you look at that one point, that helps you a lot of times, if you can't figure out above or below. So this one is to the left 3, and it's reflected across the x-axis. So we go over to the left, 1, 2, 3, and then it's reflected. So normally this one looks like this, but now it's going to be the other way. And if you need to put both of them on and erase one to help you, so reflected is going to look more like this. Let me get rid of that one. And then again, we have above or below. Now again, this one's a little bit hard, so you might want to look at that point. So look at this point. That's not what I wanted. That's not at all what I wanted. Oh, no, panic. I'll just retry. Oh, is this it? No. Okay. So left 3 looks like this. So that point we shade below, so below that point is over here, so that's everything on this side. That'll help you. So do these on your own, hit pause, do them, then check your work. So this one is, again, we reflect it first and then move it up 2, so that looks like this, and this is solid. Y is greater than, so again, if you want to look at that point, above that point is up here, so now we're shading outside. And this one is dotted. I always forget that, so I like to label. And I'm going to the right 1 and then up 3. And then this is your V shape. And Y is less than, so again, we shade below. So you go below that main point. Okay. Again, if you need to rewatch that, you can. If you need to go back and just look at parts of it, make sure you do that. The videos, again, I know sometimes it's not ideal to have me in front of you, but the good news is if you're one of those people that say, well, I understood how to do it in class, but now when I get home I don't, you can watch those videos. Make sure you guys are keeping up with your exit tickets, and again, make sure you're doing the worksheets first, check your answers, and then use that worksheet on the exit ticket. That's the best thing you guys can do.